Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to another episode of the Athletics franchise here on MLB The Show 24. As this episode we'll be going through spring training and getting ready for the 2026 MLB season. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Now here is a look at our 40-man roster that we are bringing into spring training. Not a lot of big moves from the offseason, which if you missed the offseason, I recommend you go watch it. Thank you all those who were in the premiere. I greatly appreciate you guys being there and interacting with you in the comments. Now, if you did miss the off season, it should be the last video in this series. So if you are watching on the playlist, you could just hit the back button. Or if you are watching, if you found this video on YouTube algorithm, one, thank you for clicking on it. And two, I'll leave a link in the description below as well if you want to watch the off season so you can catch up on all the moves that went down in free agency, because I will say, it was a pretty big free agency around the league. Now, for us, we didn't make any groundbreaking moves. One, we did bring back Paul Blackburn, who was our ace last year. He signed a 2-year, $13 million extension to stay with the A's. We also did sign all-star reliever Raisel Iglesias to be our new closer. He was not getting any interest on the market, so we said, why not bring him in on a 1-year, $5.4 million contract? He was an all-star just a season ago. Looking to continue to beef up our bullpen, we acquired Ryan Presley in free agency as well, who got traded last year in the season towards the deadline to the Royals. We picked him up on a 1-year, $4.3 million contract. And then we got a new left fielder in Eddie Rosario, who we signed to a 1-year deal as well. Moving on from Seth Brown and going another direction with Eddie. Now, before we get into the spring training highlights, there were some more trades that went down in baseball. We're going to cover them all here. First off, the Red Sox are going to trade starting pitcher Tanner Houck to the Rangers, so our division rivals get the rotation even stronger by acquiring the 29-year-old, by giving up Javier Aparicio, a nice bullpen prospect, to Boston. Also, the Rockies are going to move on from shortstop Ezequiel Tovar. He's being traded to Kansas City for Colt Keith in a pretty interesting move. Tovar's a pretty solid bat at 24 years old, so I think he'll help the Royals, but they did give up a nice solid prospect in Colt Keith, who's been in the league for a couple of seasons and will help out Colorado in their long-term future. Now, also going down is the Nationals trading a couple of players, starting off with Brandon Drury. He is being traded to the New York Yankees, who are looking to add a bat after losing Teoscar Hernandez in the offseason. They give up a couple of prospects for him. Since he's in AAA right now, I expect him to get called up. But they give up Tristan Vierling, a 25-year-old starting pitcher from Idaho, as well as Patrick McCann, a left fielder, 22 years old from Wisconsin. So a pair of prospects going back to Washington. They were not done, though. They trade Josiah Gray as well, one of their starting pitchers in the top of the rotation. He's going to Detroit for a couple of prospects. Josiah Gray, 28 years old, will help that Detroit pitching staff looking to make some moves in the AL Central. They give up Jace Young, a solid 25-year-old from Texas, as well as Tyler Holton, who should fill in immediately into that bullpen and going into his 4th MLB season. Now, the biggest one we saved for last, Christian Yelich, longtime Brewer, is no longer a Brewer. He is being traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Christian Yelich gets to play for his childhood team right back, since he's from Malibu, the former NL MVP, and the only team who's willing to take that contract is the Dodgers. Now, they do give up a lot. They give up Dustin May, a reliever, as well as Michael Grove, but the Dodgers, looking to keep up in the West, they add Christian Yelich to their lineup. Now, that was all the trades. We sim at spring training, and we go 10-21, so not a good spring for your Athletics. We'll take a look at the stats here, starting off with the pitchers. You can see on your screen, Sears, Blackburn, Abel got a lot of innings, but nobody really stands out again. Robbie Francisco struggled. Jose Butto looked decent for his standards. Presley, though, in the bullpen was really good in his 19 innings. Luis Medina showed out, as we had a couple guys fighting for roster spots, specifically in the pitching department. Miller didn't look good. Jackson, again, struggling. That's concerning. Raisel Iglesias, he didn't give up an earned run. We like that from our closer. We just got to get to him. But a couple of other guys who stand out. Hogan Harris, not so good. I was seeing if he would compete for maybe a rotation or a bullpen spot. Joe Boyle looked good. I like that. That's something to keep in the back of my mind. But if we go over to the hitters now, Tyler Soderstrom, our all-star last year, looked pedestrian. Susac, okay. He's going to be the now full-time catcher. Ryan Noda hit really well, which is good to see. Zach Geloff did good as well. So did Adam Frazier. You know, I'm a little bit not sold on him. Was his last year a 1-year fluke? Max Muncy got some at-bats. Wasn't overly impressive. Jacob Wilson struggled, which is a little disappointing because him and Jordan Diaz, who way outperformed Wilson, were battling for that third base spot. And I like what I see out of Jacob Wilson. Toro didn't get a single hit in 14 at-bats. Robbie Martin back in the lineup after missing a lot of time last year with an injury. Didn't look good, and a lot of these shortstops didn't look overly that impressive, except for Logan Davidson out of that group. We have a lot of young shortstops, and it's kind of anybody's game at that position. Left field, Eddie looked good. 3 homers, 356. We like to see that out of our new signing. Ruiz was just okay. Like to see a little bit more on him. And then Rooker was decent, better than what he usually hits, considering he's just kind of a power hitter at this point. Colby Thomas looked good and limited at bats, and Butler did not. So time to trim the roster down to 26. We're going to start off with the easy ones. Gunnar Hoglund is going to go down to the minors. Joey Estes as well. A lot of these guys just called up for spring training. And another arm, JT Ginn. But I do like to see a lot of these guys maybe this season if they continue to improve in the minors. Hogan Harris, like I said, I was hoping he'd latch on. He did not, so he's going to start the year in AAA. And then Joe Boyle as well. Despite a strong spring, we're going to send him down, but he could be one of the first guys called up if something happens. Abner Uribe, our prospect we got from the Shea Langoliers trade, we're going to start him off in the minors. Don't want to rush him. Max Muncy will go down as well. You know, another easy one who's just too young. Abraham Toro didn't get a hit in the spring, so he doesn't deserve to be on the team, in my opinion, so he's going to have to clear through waivers and hopefully go down to the minors. Colby Thomas just added to the 40-man to avoid Rule 5 draft. He's going to be sent down. And Lawrence Butler as well. I think it's still not ready for him considering his numbers, so he's going to start off in AAA. Get into the harder ones now. Kyle Muller will be waived. I like Muller, and I hope he doesn't get cleared, claimed off waivers, but I just need to see a little bit more out of him. Robbie Francisco will also go down. He was good towards the end of last year, but did not look good in spring, so he's not going to win a rotation spot. And then on the hitter side of things, Richie Veach will be sent down. I think we called him up a little too early last year, so he's back down with Las Vegas. And then Daryl Hernandez, this one was tough. He had a decent spring. He was good last year, but we just have too many shortstops, so he'll head down to AAA. So here's a look at our final roster going into the year. In terms of righties, we'll see Geloff, Rosario, Noda, Soderstrom, Ruiz, Frazier at DH. Jacob Wilson will start at third base. I'm not fully sold on that, though, followed by Davison and Rooker. And on the lefty side of things, you can see Geloff, Martin, Soderstrom, Rooker, Noda, Ruiz, Wilson, Rosario, and Davidson. So Martin and Frazier will platoon this season to begin at that shortstop designated hitter spot. And you can see the bench: Jordan Diaz, Daniel Susac, Nick Allen, and Adam Frazier. Here's a look at our rotation. Paul Blackburn, Mick Abel, JP Sears, Jose Butto will start off in the rotation. We'll see how that goes. And Kim Wallachuk had a good spring, so he wins that last spot. In the bullpen, Luis Medina made the cut thanks to his strong spring training. We'll see Jackson, Miller, Barlow, and Presley in your middles. Set up is Urseg and Santillan, and the closer will be Raisel Iglesias. But before we end the episode, I did want to take a look around the league and preview some of the other teams. Starting off with our division, the Houston Astros made it to the World Series last year. They lost in a sensational 7-game series, but they made a lot of questionable moves in the offseason. Their bullpen notoriously got weaker with trading away Brian Abreu and Josh Hader. So we'll have to look to lean on their offensive bats again. Jordan Alvarez had a great postseason. Kyle Tuckerson, that big 9-year extension in free agency. We'll see if that's enough, though, with a struggling bullpen. The team that I think is the most feared in the West, though, is the Rangers. They are a pretty stacked squad. You know, winners of the World Series just a few years ago. I think they have what it takes to get back. Corey Seager had a sensational year last year, won the batting title, Silver Slugger All-Star. Adolis Garcia at 33, he's still kicking it, and honestly, he might even be getting better as his age goes on. Evan Carter has been one of the best young players in recent years. He won Rookie of the Year, then was an All-Star last year, so he will continue to be a threat. And on the pitching side of things, you got Jacob deGrom, the 3-time and reigning AL Cy Young. So I think this Rangers team is the scariest in the AL West. Unfortunately, they will not have Josh Young, though. He tore his ACL in spring training. That's a big hit for the Texas Rangers. In the Angels department, they made the playoffs last year, which I thought was awesome for them, considering all that's happened to them in the past few seasons. Do they have enough to get back? I don't know. Mike Trout is still Mike Trout, but is there enough behind him to get the Halos back to the postseason and let Trout continue to play postseason ball? Finally, in the AL West is the Seattle Mariners. I think they are the weakest team in this division if you don't include us. You know, they didn't do very good last year. Julio Rodriguez has had a couple of down seasons after being an all-star and winning Rookie of the Year. They're hoping he gets back to form, and George Kirby steps up as the ace of this rotation. Now 28 with a couple of seasons, he is their ace. Going around the other American League teams, we'll start off with the Blue Jays, who were the best team in the AL last year, but they lost both of their best offensive bats in free agency. Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette both left to go to Cincinnati, so they'll have to rely on their big acquisition in free agency a couple years ago in Gleyber Torres to continue to push them over the hump. The Tampa Bay Rays may be the favorite now in the AL East. They made a pretty solid move acquiring Josh Naylor in free agency, I thought, for a very team-friendly contract. Shane McClanahan is one of the best starting pitchers in the American League as well, but to pair him up with now Josh Naylor, who signed a 4-year contract for not 5-year contract for not that much money, you can see. So a good move for the Tampa Bay Rays. They can win the AL East. Finally, in the Central, the American League side of things, I'm starting off with the Guardians. They have a lot of top-end talent. They've been aggressive in trades the past couple of seasons. And they also have Jonathan Clase, who's one of the best closers in the American League. The flamethrower has been pushing it, 4 straight All-Star appearances. And then they acquired William Contreras in the deadline last year, and he's been a pretty solid bat. Wasn't part of the All-Star game last year. He'll help this offense going forward. Kansas City Royals have been a very interesting team. They made a couple of solid moves, I would say, recently. They just acquired Tovar from the Rockies. They have Bobby Witt Jr., one of the fastest players in baseball, at only 25 years old, anchoring that offense. And then remember last year, they signed Blake Snell in free agency to a 3-year contract, the former 2-time Cy Young Award winner, on a front-loaded deal, so they don't have to pay him as much. And they just acquired Josh Hader in a trade from the Houston Astros in the offseason. So beefing up this team is KC. They could be a sleeper team to watch this year. Lastly, in the American League side of things, we'll take a look at the Twins. I like what they have in Minnesota. They were kind of quiet this offseason, but they have a pretty solid core that I think they can lean on. Johan Duran is establishing himself as one of the best closers in the American League side of things, back-to-back All-Star appearances. And then on the offense, you got Royce Lewis, who just got his first All-Star nod. He's coming into his own at 26, all-around good player for the Twins. To the National League side of things, though, we'll start off, of course, with the World Series champions, the Phillies, who won it all in 7 last year. And they honestly maybe got stronger in the offseason. They added the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner in Zach Gallen to a 5-year contract. That's a big move to help this rotation that was, most people viewed, the weakest part of this team. They also have Bryce Harper, who just now finally is a World Series champion at the age of 33. So you know there's a big weight lifted off his back. Maybe he can play a little bit more freely. Trey Turner, speedy man, 4-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger now. He's still a part of that offense. Oh, and then they didn't just add Gallen. They added Dylan Cease as well to a 5-year contract. So great additions to this rotation. The Phillies look to go back-to-back. In their way, though, in their division will be the Atlanta Braves, the World Series champion from 2 years ago. And honestly, I think Atlanta has the firepower to win it all again. Acuna had a down season, but he is one of the best players in baseball, so I expect to bounce back from him. Olsen was the MVP a couple of seasons ago. He has power. He could also get back to that spot. Spencer Strider somehow didn't make the All-Star game last year, but he is a dominant starting pitcher to have. One guy you don't want to run into in October. Austin Riley as well on the offensive side of things. He's a 4-time Silver Slugger. He can hit the baseball. Then Ozzie Albies at 29, still in his prime. The switch hitter had a down year last year, but like Acuna, I expect him to bounce back. Then you got Sean Murphy behind the plate at 31 years old, the playoff MVP just from a couple of seasons ago. So this is a loaded Atlanta Braves team. Going to the NL Central, you got to talk about the Reds, man. They were the winners of free agency. They just went after the top talent possible, and we'll see how they fit them all into their lineup. But adding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is never going to be a bad thing, signing a 9-year contract. Oh, and that wasn't the only player they poached from Toronto. They went and signed Bo Bichette as well, the AL batting champ from 2 years ago. Again, it'll be interesting to see how these players all fit in a 9-man lineup and what positions they play. But in terms of adding the most talent, I think Cincinnati did that. In the NL West, the Dodgers are the team to beat still. They were the best team in the regular season last year before dodging out in the postseason. We just saw them acquire Christian Yelich in a trade, and they still have top-end talent. Mookie Betts at 33 years old is still going to be an MVP level candidate. He had a very good year last year, and the other player on his team was actually the MVP, Shohei Ohtani, now a 3-time ML MVP and also a Cy Young Award winner. He's a unicorn for a reason. Tyler Glasnow is also a nice starting pitcher to have. Him and Ohtani are a great 1-2 punch at the top of your rotation. And then you still have Freddie Freeman, who is the batting champ from 2 years ago at the age of 36, still playing at a high level. Tanner Scott, you acquired him in a trade from the Marlins last year at the deadline to be your closer. And he might not even have to be the closer anymore because you also acquired Brian Abreu, the reigning 2-time AL reliever of the year from the Astros. Trying to keep up with them is the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were the winners, I would say, of free agency 2 years ago. But they're looking to continue to try to make a push at those Dodgers. Remember, they signed Juan Soto. They won the Soto sweepstakes a couple of off seasons ago. The 2024 AL MVP. Corbin Carroll is still a young player. Somehow he's had his name thrown around in trade rumors. Not sure how much belief there is to those, though. I don't see them trading him. They did lose Zach Gallen in free agency, but they tried to replace him by signing Chris Paddock to a 4-year contract. We'll see how that works out, though, in Arizona. And the last team we'll take a highlight is probably my sneaky team in the National League, the San Francisco Giants. They haven't made any big-time stuff, but I like what they're doing out here. Camilo Doval has emerged as one of the best closing pitchers in the National League, the 2-time All-Star. And you also have Logan Webb, who was a first-time All-Star this year and is looking like a solid ace to have in your rotation. And then remember, they signed Hammer Longballo a couple of years ago from the international free agency scene. He's the Rookie of the Year, and now he's got a full season under his belt. He could be even better. They did sign JT Realmuto also to a 1-year contract, so I think San Francisco could be a team who sleeps in it as a wild card. That'll do it for our preview. Next episode, we'll start the 2026 season. We have a home stand against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we'll look to see who gets their season started off on the right track. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. I hope you're as ready for the start of the season as I am, and can't wait to get into more baseball content. If you're excited for it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe down below, especially if you also want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.